You've probably never heard of this forgotten hero of the Christian faith because he's also a Nazi. It's December of 1937, and the Imperial Japanese Army is storming the Chinese city of Nanjing in the Second Sino-Japanese War. What happens next is so unbelievably brutal, history remembers it as the Rape of Nanking. The Japanese army massacred over 200,000 innocent people. 80,000 women and children were raped. If their husbands, brothers, or fathers tried to intervene, they were shot. Pregnant women were disemboweled and their infants bayoneted. With something just like this. Two notorious Japanese officers held a competition to see who could murder 100 people faster by the sword, and the competition was covered and celebrated by a Japanese newspaper. There were hundreds of Westerners who were living in Nanking, and they fled the city as the Japanese approached, except for 22 people, American missionaries, some doctors and professors, and a German businessman. John Rabe was a 55-year-old German Lutheran who had been in China for over 30 years as Siemens' senior sales executive to the Chinese government. He had actually joined the Nazi Party from China years prior when it was still known primarily as a social workers movement. As the Japanese enter the city and the carnage begins, John Rabe leads a group of American missionaries and he marks out what's called a safety zone. It's a couple of square miles of the city, and he says no military of either side is allowed in, no weapons at all, just civilian refugees. Over the next few months, this safety zone ends up saving the lives of over 250,000 Chinese refugees. In his own personal home, his backyard, John Rabe feeds, houses, and clothes over 600 refugees. Rabe would patrol the streets of the safety zone and confront Japanese soldiers, oftentimes staring down the barrel of a gun. Here's the thing though, you see, Imperial Japan wanted to be allied with Nazi Germany, and John Rabe appealed to that red armband on his sleeve, and he said, hey, there's going to be political fallout if you enter because I represent Nazi Germany. Whether or not he actually had this political power, the play worked. His personal bravery combined with his appeal to that party membership ended up saving the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. On Christmas Eve, John forced himself to go to the hospital morgue to witness the horror, the carnage, bodies of children. He recorded in his diary that night, I wanted to see the atrocities with my own eyes so that I can speak as an eyewitness later. A man cannot be silent about this kind of cruelty. The terrible crisis that has overtaken all of us here has restored my childlike faith. Rabe returns to Germany the next year to report on what he's witnessed, and he's convinced if he can just get word to the Chancellor himself, Germany will step in to stop the Japanese army. Instead, it's John Rabe that Germany stops. He was detained indefinitely and interrogated by the Gestapo. His company Siemens actually had to intervene to get him released. After the war, things just got worse for him. You see, his party membership that at one point saved his life now left him disgraced, unemployed, and his family literally starving to death in bombed-out Berlin. John and his wife began selling off their possessions one by one just to feed their children, eventually only surviving off of bread, nettles, and wild seeds they'd find in the backyard. On the brink of death in 1948, word had somehow reached the people of Nanking of the Rabe family desperation, and the people that John once saved now saved him by sending his family food and provisions. John Rabe died in 1950, utterly penniless and completely forgotten to the Western world. However, his great legacy lives on in the people and the city that he once risked his life for. His former home in Nanking still sits there now as a museum and a memorial to what had happened in 1937, and it's maintained in part by charitable donations from Siemens. There's anywhere from 500,000 to over 1 million people walking the planet today because of the heroism and bravery of a German businessman who in 1937 had everything to lose and nothing to gain, and yet he faced off against the most animalistic and savage people of the 20th century to save the lives of men, women, and children from a different culture who looked nothing like him, who spoke a different language, and many of whom worshipped a completely different God. Heavy and ornate is the crown that one day John will get to cast before Christ's throne.